for a site plan waiver from 494 Main Street, Window Technologies Incorporated. The applicant is requesting a waiver of site plan to change the use of the existing building from entertainment to a window and door showroom for consultation. After that, we'll review and discuss draft amendments to the solar bylaw and also a new bylaw or an addition for battery energy storage systems. Following that, we'll have the town planner update, then old and new business, then adjournment, and this meeting is being recorded. So the first item will be the review or the acceptance of the minutes of July 27th. Any discussion, comments, any questions? If not, we have a motion to approve as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Very good. Okay, the next item then is the site plan waiver request for 494 Main Street. Up and introduce yourselves, and Aiden, do you want to give an introduction?
Yeah.
Oh,
okay. Before you tonight is the applicant Jeremy Kingsbury and the owner Cedric Daniel. We have been working with them over the past month or so for the change of use from the existing building, which was Hog Heaven, and also recently reviewed as that golf simulator proposal in February of this past year, and now they're proposing to have a window and door showroom by Anderson. It was reviewed by the design review committee, and now they're here before the planning board.
Okay,
Thank you.
you want to go over this and explain it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, grab a seat, Jeremy. So I'm Cedric, the building owner, and this is Jeremy, Windows Technology. So, over the last year, as Aiden said, I think we went through the process of making it, I think, entertainment, you guys zoned it as, but that has obviously changed. They've moved up the street there, up the road, and Jeremy's come across and has a good proposal for us and to be a good tenant, and that's what you see in front of us here, sort of a showroom, window and door, a little office space, correct, Jeremy?
That's right.
Administrative office as well. He's going to upgrade the we're going to upgrade the bathroom, so it's ADA compliant, and just some, there you go, better picture. So it doesn't look like that right now, as you guys know, probably. So he's going to fix it up and, put some floating floors in, engineered floors. Right now it's a concrete slab. Obviously update the lighting, fixtures. What am I missing? Oh, HVAC. We're going to put in 2 split systems,
That's right.
2 AC heat splits.
Nice.
And that's pretty much it. And then probably mark the, once everything's done and we're done making a mess, we'll mark the lines for the parking lot. And is that in the plan as well, I think? There we go.
All right. So is this parking layout different from what's there now?
Right now, there's no lines. Probably last time there were lines, maybe when it was in auto parts, Bousquet Auto Parts, potentially.
A while ago, yeah.
In my 5-6 years in this neighborhood, I haven't seen lines, but, and you can't see any wearing of lines. This, I think originally we were doing parking plan for entertainment where there's, some pretty good foot traffic. For Jeremy's application, what's the max
Yeah,
people
right.
would
Couple,
be?
2, 3, 4 cars at the most. So
Right. So,
All right. So Aiden, this went through staff review?
Mhm.
And any comments or questions on that, or?
No, I think the staff review articulates everything we went through. We did distribute this to, and I checked in with other staff members, and no one really had any changes in their comments, as really it's a much less intensive use than what was already approved back in February. In terms of parking, the only recommendation I felt there was we know that this is going to be overparked, but we can't eliminate too many spaces just because of the regulations. But we do feel, and having been on site myself, recommends potentially removing space 5 just to have a more common sense traffic pattern for people that are pulling into that business and the business next door as well. So that will have to be confirmed post-approval along with the DPW director if that's feasible or not. But we do recommend that as part of the report.
Okay, so your recommendation then is to waive the site plan with these conditions?
Yes, I recommend it as proposed with the addition of one more condition, which would be there shall be no outside storage of materials or equipment.
Okay, are you aware of that situation? Okay, so instead of the 7 shown here, we'll have 8, and the 8th one would be no outside storage?
Correct.
Okay. All right, any comments, questions, discussion?
Yeah, one question is, is this strictly a showroom, or are you going to have windows and other components stored inside that building? Or is that a queue area for orders? Are you going to be having trucks in and out of there, back in and out of that location, or?
Nope, it is just gonna be a showroom. So window and door samples inside
Okay.
the showroom in real situations, installed situations for customers to kind of understand what they might look like in their home.
So your intention is to basically drop ship whatever gets ordered? You're not going to have like a supply of a common window?
No, that's somewhere, I have distribution somewhere else. Yeah, not
Yeah.
involved in this location
Because I
at
know,
all.
I'm familiar with the site as well over the years, and it does have some tight radiuses in there.
Yeah.
And, I don't think there's a proper loading dock. There used to be a side door in the back
No.
someplace, but
Okay.
that-
Nope.
other than that,
No, we'll just have maybe a couple of office folks at the most with daily operations, answering telephones, scheduling installations, and taking phone calls from potential clients and that sort of thing.
Very good.
yeah, so other than that, I do see 5 would be an issue, frankly. Just the radiuses of people, and people have to kind of move quick when they pull in,
sure.
pull out, because of the way
Yes.
that the current
Sure.
piece of Route 20 is structured. It's aggressive, and you have to get out of the way fast, so
Yeah.
if you don't have the room to kind of like sneak in there, you have to slot yourself in, you might miss.
Yeah, that 5 is, there's actually a curb, a granite curb cut
Yes.
right up to almost where the N is and in. And people have been driving over it for
Forever.
forever, yeah. So it is a bit tight there.
Yeah, it is tight. The curb cuts are tight there.
Yeah.
Are you going to repaint the lines on the parking?
We'll put lines,
Yeah.
correct.
And your handicap spot right now is,
There's no handicap there at the moment. There's a handicap ramp on which is
right.
not on
It's
this.
a parking spot. If you're going to get rid of number 5, would number 6 become your handicap
I
spot?
think the plan was number 3, right?
3, okay.
I think, originally with the golf outfit, we were gonna do 3.
Okay.
And then you can sort of see the stripes where if it's a
Yes.
van, and then the ramp is just at that corner.
Got it.
But you can sort of see the ramp, there's a line there, that's
Yeah.
the ramp.
Okay.
But again, I'm not, too, if it needs to be 6 or 7, I don't know handicap, how that works. We could make 6 or 7 handicap if that's
I
the
just, if you have
recommendation.
one, I'm not sure how many you need for that traffic flow or that number of spaces, but what you
You
had.
need one handicap?
Yeah, we'll need one handicap spot that's identified in the parking calculations. And my understanding was it was intended to be 3, but ultimately, wherever we place it.
The loading thing for the van.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, I don't think you'd have room in 6 or 7 to be able to put a van
Yeah,
in
the
there
bank,
and stick
there's a
out.
bank that
There's
comes down.
a rise there, so
That's
it
true.
would have to be up in the front.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then it's easy for them to pull right out. That's just 1 through 4 there is just, it's all paved, there's no
Right.
mediums or anything.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts?
Well, so-
If not, we have a motion then to grant the waiver of site plan with the 8 conditions listed.
Seconded?
But you make a motion first.
Motion moved.
All in favor? Very good. All right, thank you very much for coming in. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Okay, next on the agenda is the draft amendments to the solar bylaw and discussion on the, also the battery energy storage systems.
Okay. So first off, I'll say this was a revision to the agenda. That is my fault. I'm transitioning my Rhode Island knowledge to Massachusetts and understanding what exactly the definition of agenda items mean as opposed to action items. But before you tonight is the ongoing work of multiple staff members, including former town planner Jean Bouban, and also representative consultant from CMRPC, Ron Barron. He is also working with at least 10 other communities on drafting specific bylaws for their community. And so essentially the history here is the state of Massachusetts has effective October 1st, municipalities must be in compliance with their new consolidated permit regulations. And so what that means for us is solar and accessory uses to solar, in this case, meaning battery energy and storage systems, BESS, need to have a one-stop shop, for lack of a better term. And that consolidated permit also has triggered us to make other revisions, propose other revisions to our bylaw to be consistent with that regulation proposed. So in front of you is the recommendations up to this point from town staff and CMRPC for how we bring ourselves into compliance and we maintain local control. Because if come October 1st, if our moratorium is not accepted by the AG's office and certain solar facilities were proposed, we may be required to deny them over our existing bylaws we have in place. And if they're denied, then they go to the Energy Facility Siting Board, EFSB, and the decision would be rendered by that body as opposed to us. So the intent here is to work with the regulations imposed by the state and try to harness back some local control. I think it'll be helpful for me to go just briefly page by page what's discussed here. So page 1 is just striking a definition that will no longer be relevant. The new consolidated solar permit provides definitions that towns are just required to accept, or recommended to accept, and that transitions to page 2, where those definitions are listed as just solar energy facility. Anything less than 25 megawatts would be reviewed by the local body. Anything that exceeds 25 megawatts would go to the EFSB, Energy Facility Siting Board, and they would render that decision.
These are statewide definitions?
They are. And below that are those definitions for solar energy facilities in regards to them being building mounted or canopy. And we'll just go to the next page and I'll finish all of these and I'll kind of turn it over if you have any general questions. So then we transition to section 300-10, which is our existing bylaw for solar energy facilities. And you'll see 10.2, that kind of takes those definitions from the last page and breaks them into more digestible language and how they're actually applied here for what's an accessory versus a primary use. I think what's really important here is for the primary use. You'll see multiple edits down there, and there's been a lot of discussion on where these should actually be permitted prohibited or permitted by special use. There's been a lot of discussion on municipalities needing to offer enough land percentage so that, it's feasible that someone can come in and there's enough land percentage to propose a solar application. And that kind of has caused staff to question, well, what should we offer up? Are we offering up enough? And there was discussion at one point in time whether the rural residential district should be permitted, but we've ultimately striked that, and we don't believe that that's necessary. We believe that we are offering enough land, and that that's also proven by the number of solar facilities that are already operating in this town as well. So this section D is something I would expect we may have some discussion on, to which district should actually be permitted or included in the special use permit. The next page is some just general definitions and a lot of formatting. And following that is, I would say, the next big portion of this. The battery, energy, and storage systems is not a section that's defined in our bylaws yet. It's included here because if we do not have it included, then again, any application that comes in would need to be denied, and it would go to the Energy Facility Siting Board. So including this, yes, it is imposed by the state, but it helps us retain some local control as soon as possible. You'll see a very large comment on the side here from Ron Barron, and this is something I don't think we will discuss in depth tonight, potentially at a following or subsequent meeting, but we will be working, town staff, myself, along with Conservation, DPW, and Fire and Emergency Response to clarify what should our standards be for decommissioning and overall safety of these sites, especially for battery energy storage systems. Solar, it's up to 25 megawatts. These BESS sites, we have to review them up to 100 megawatts locally, which are very, very large sites. So we need to be very careful in how we're actually permitting these in terms of overall site safety and then decommissioning down the road. And then the last 3 pages, the next page just has some general questions and comments for us to consider regarding the site, and then I would say that's about it for this. So regarding this draft you have in front of you, again, this was the work of town staff members over since we found out a couple months ago, and really honed in the last month or so. It was brought up at department head meetings, and then we also had a land use staff meeting in which everyone commented, and we really finalized these with Ron Barron. Going forward, my hope is that we'll have some general discussion tonight. I will be following up with Ron Barron tomorrow morning, and we'll probably spend some time incorporating and drafting whatever we discussed tonight. Then the next step would be for a final draft to be provided to the planning board at our next meeting on August 24th. Before that meeting, we would also be working with Ron Barron and other departments, mainly Conservation and DPW. And for the special use permit, we need to draft very clear standards, especially establishing protections for the groundwater protection district. So that's something we will be finalizing and incorporating into the next draft, which we will hope to provide by the 24th.
Okay, so as far as like some of these recommendations that they have for how the permitting for siting should actually be, are we talking about a special permit for the groundwater protection district only, or what are the recommendations on how this thing should be permitted?
Yeah, for the special permit, currently that's written that for primary use, it would only be allowed in the commercial district and the commercial 2 district by special use permit. I think we also want to add into that any site that is located in the groundwater protection district would also need to be by special use permit, regardless of where it's zoned. But we haven't incorporated that yet because we do not have standards to accompany that. Final thing I will say is at one point this draft did contain an entirely new section which was incorporating the state language on the actual consolidated local permit. And we felt that it probably wasn't necessary to include it in the bylaw changes, and we could retain more local control by just incorporating it into the planning board local rules and regulations. And that way, as this evolves over time, we can amend that as we see fit. The board can amend that as opposed to having to make bylaw changes.
So that regulation would be for the comprehensive permit portion of it?
Yes, yep, for the consolidated local permit.
We would end up with, say, a revision to our current solar bylaw to define the new definitions in the 25 megawatt siting. And then also a section in there which would be more or less a new bylaw defining the battery energy systems and the requirements and so forth that are listed here.
Correct.
And then after that, the actual consolidated permit wording wouldn't go into a bylaw, it would instead go into a regulation.
Yes, it would go into the regulation, and we would most likely use the vast majority of the language the state provides, and we would tailor it to fit our local rules and regulations and define who the permitting authority would be, which we would recommend would be the planning board.
Okay, so back in October of '25, the state, I think, issued their first draft of the model zoning bylaw. And they had, in their view, obviously not consistent with all of the zones we have, they had residential, commercial, industrial, agricultural. And then they had recommendations for by right subject to building permit only, special permit by right subject to site plan review, and then special permit or not permitted. So in the discussion that the staff had, were there discussions of these level of permitting at the different zones that we have, or was there a report that was given by the staff or anything, or?
I'm not aware. I'd have to look into the discussion that occurred. My understanding at this point in time is that they should all fall under the consolidated local permit, but I would have to review that draft and compare the work that has been done in the past year.
Okay. Now, could you define a little bit about what the consolidated special permit really means, or you just discussed?
Yes, and we'll be providing a draft of that on the 24th, but the consolidated local permit essentially at its core says that any solar proposal or any solar accessory use such as BESS needs to go to one singular decision rendering body, and then within that core definition it provides regulations as to how that's supposed to be done. And from the state's point of view, that's supposed to prevent solar applications from being bounced around to five or six different regulating bodies, and instead, in the case of Sturbridge, we would hope that would just go only to the planning board.
So it doesn't go through conservation, it comes to us as far as
The requirement would be it would have to go to one body.
It's supposed to reduce red tape in concept.
Yes, concept.
It does create extra layers. A quick question is where, there's a talk about a mandated amount of land. Where's this land come from? Is it town land? What if there isn't enough land or no one offers? We do have limited, say, commercial district land currently, right? That's my understanding. Where would land come from for these projects?
So my understanding is that based on what other communities are doing and on a recent discussion we had with town council, was that municipalities need in their bylaws to provide adequate space for these solar facilities to be considered. What adequate space actually means and whether a definition is provided, that's unclear, and there is not a single threshold. It's not you need to provide at least 1% or 5% of your land. That definition exists so that municipalities don't, take this language and, overly obscure it so that way, in effect, there is no land available when you consider every single, conservation restriction and where it's permitted versus prohibited, or, it's only permitted by special use permit in these zones, but all of those zones are located in their groundwater protection district. So, we believe that currently, as this is written on page 3 for primary use solar facilities, that where we propose it to be permitted versus prohibited and then allowed by special permit, it still does allow for new applications to come in, and there is adequate land available for new facilities.
Is there any percentage threshold for a community? Say we already have, well, I'll throw out a number, like 15% of our land has solar farms already. Would there be a minimum satisfactory level? Is the state putting some threshold where that would be like, you're good?
As far as I'm aware, the state has not given a definitive threshold, but one can essentially be implied by looking at what's going on with the Attorney General's office.
Okay.
So we've seen cases where, 1% really isn't enough. 5% may be enough. For the 24th, I will also be including discussions we had with town council, and those figures were calculated at one point in time, and we believe that the percentage that we are proposing through how we have this zoned was enough.
So let me ask you about the available land and what are the percentages. It's public and private land that it would have to be under, that's the assumption.
Correct.
And anywhere between, let's say, you gave an example of 1% to 5%. So without the watershed issues or any other areas that were conservation issues or any other thing downtown, the village center and things like that, but we would come up with a minimum amount of town land that would fall within the acceptable places that one of these facilities could go into, and that would include public and private land, as I just said. So it's not just what we have at the town of Sturbridge public land. It's also private land. So if Joe, the generator guy, wants to come in and build a facility, he has an offer from somebody with a private land, and it falls within that specialized land that could be built upon, then that's all well and good for the most part. That's, if I'm following correctly, that's what we have here, right?
Yeah, that's the correct reasoning there.
Okay, good.
If we're just looking at total land coverage, a map of Sturbridge, and basically everywhere where this could potentially be feasible, we want to make sure there is enough land for people to come in and do their due diligence and make those decisions.
Okay.
Right. So currently, the zones that actually we currently have allowing these things for the ground mounted are industrial, commercial.
As written currently, under the definition of large-scale solar facilities and small-scale. Currently, they are prohibited in suburban residential, rural residential, the commercial district, commercial tourist district, and historical commercial district, and the commercial 2. In this case, we consider moving the commercial district and commercial 2 district to special permit. And that's the main change there.
So the facilities would only be allowed with the changes and stuff like that, in what districts in town would?
They would only be allowed by right in general industrial, industrial park, and special use. And then if they wanted to pursue a special use permit, then it would be the commercial and commercial 2 districts.
Very good.
Essentially of 3 by right and then 2 by special permit.
Okay.
One other comment question would be, say someone proposes to build a large facility in a fairly off the beaten path, off the main ways, and say it's on a forest, on a hill, and obviously these things need to transmit that power to a line. Does this include permitting of removal of trees, clearing land to put in three-phase high-powered lines to make connections to the grid as well? Or is it isolated just to the land that we're talking about for a solar farm? Now, I can see where, if we have it in an industrial district or commercial, there's typically high-powered lines that they can connect to. Once you get off, it's usually single phase, or you may have to go in a mile and a quarter, or 2 miles to get that power to someplace where it needs to go. Will the permitting process affect that as well, or is that something separate?
That's not a question that I would be able to answer right now. I'm just not sure.
I understand.
I'd have to speak with people much more educated than I when it comes to this, and I would assume the answer may vary when it comes to solar and BESS sites and how that's actually done.
Yeah, because we just did that Charlton, Sturbridge, Podock Pike area. We had
Right.
that way, all those ways had to be improved for upgraded lines.
Well, the actual, yes, I mean, National Grid had the right to bring those lines through there. So they had to put more poles in, obviously.
But they existed
And they had-
already, so they already
Yeah,
had
yeah,
property right.
Yeah, in other words,
Yeah.
the requirement really was, then we do have, our tree bylaw that you can, have limitation on what you can cut and then what you have to replace. That's why there were so many
Yeah.
trees replaced in
If you
different
approve
areas.
a special permit on something like this, you're enabling power going to that site, right? And
Well,
then-
I don't see it that way.
I know,
But
but
I
it is,
see that
it
as
is,
a
it is
separate process, that it should be part of the plan, of
I
course.
agree, but
But that would be right of ways over other people's properties. I mean, from a capitalistic point of view, generally, you wouldn't want to build too far away from that infrastructure to begin with, because it would be prohibitively expensive to get easements and have those wires created when National Grid would not be responsible until you made that hookup.
Yeah, I mean, most of the ones that have, I think all the ones that have been presented here and I'm sure in other communities, are cited in a location that does have access to the grid, I mean, one way or another. Now, the one you brought up in Charlton, it did have access to the grid, but they did have to be upgraded, and that's why they had to be, trees removed and then trees replanted.
Right.
And there will be, much more power lines brought through there, but again, it's already on the right-of-way and the land that National Grid does control to do that. And our role on that wasn't so much on, say, a site plan for that particular project, but it was for, our requirements for the number of trees removed and clearing things, and of course,
Right.
Part of that was on a public way as well, even though it wasn't used. I mean, there's no travel on it, but again, right on it too, it was along, a public.
Yeah, my thought falls more towards that connection to that point where I think what we're talking with this is where National Grid already had existing lines and they had to upgrade them to accommodate the extra power that was being generated by this facility. Now, say they build a facility that's a quarter mile from that, and it goes, there's 3 or 4 properties that it has to traverse to get to those National Grid lines or whatever power provider there is, how is that process going to
I mean, that
happen?
is gonna be very situational.
Is it going to be enforced
depending-
right away?
Yeah, I
or-
mean, that's gonna be a very situational thing, and whereas, you know, if you're talking, what kind of land are we talking about, what are you
Oh, it's,
going across, you know?
right,
and-
indeed, it's very situational to wherever it gets proposed, but I do think it's one of those things that, is it gonna be, well, you have a right to build this, but then you have a right to take, there's an easement and a right to take the land to get those wires to where they need to go in the shortest way possible. And that's, I see that as a gray area and it needs to be defined. So we know what this is really about in total. Like, I see this as a state sort of mandate thing that's being dropped on us in a very short period of time, where you have to kind of like gun it through. We don't have a lot of time to really process it. I think a lot of towns don't even have the resources to do what we're doing to try to integrate that boilerplate they sent us and to integrate it into our structure of our bylaws and codes.
But look at what we're doing with these bylaws now, right? In that situation where that question comes up potentially across a residential land or something, we
Yeah.
now will have the ability to say, no.
Or
not-
do we?
We don't understand the usage of how that's gonna go through until that can be clarified.
Right.
And these other people are protected.
But by right is by right,
Right.
so it depends on how you look at it.
You know, generally, these solar things are sited in areas where they do have access to the right level.
Typically,
of-
yes.
It's usually part of the plan.
I'm not aware of any that, say, would try to have a totally new transmission line.
But we don't have a
I
lot
would think
of
they'd have
land.
to purchase the easement to be able to go through an area that's not theirs, right?
Yeah.
It's
You would
not-
want to
You'd
do
have to
that.
do that,
Yeah.
you know?
I would think you'd want to do that, but, you know, here again, how the state sees it and how we see it may be different.
Well, it
And it
only
does
makes-
concern me.
It is, yeah, sure, we should get clear, yeah.
You only want to have your facility near a place where you can access the grid, and you don't want to have it 1.5 to 2 miles or even a quarter.
Because it's not
mile
cost
away.
effective.
Well, it's just silly, they wouldn't do that, because their engineers wouldn't allow them to do that. So they would have to put it on a property that was within the scope that the town has had in the percentage of it, that would be, meets the rules and regulations and the bylaws of the town. One. Second, has to be within range where they can throw an extension cord out the facility window and hook it up onto the wires of the transmission lines. And they're not gonna be putting up a whole bunch of new roads to facilitate that. That's just a common sense thing for them. They don't wanna go that route, they just wouldn't want to do that. Anybody would, a private or even a national concern. So I think what you have here is once we get as Adrian was saying, that 1 to 5%, what we're thinking of, whatever the land it is, if somebody wants to come in here and put a battery storage unit in, and that's all well and good if it meets all the requirements, they're gonna place it where it's good, the facility is going to be the best place for them to hook up to. So I see what you're saying though, but they're not gonna put that 3/4 of a mile down the road and has put a whole bunch of new transmission lines in. They're not even gonna do that over private properties and things like that. That's not gonna make their journey, putting this thing easier or better or whatever. They wanna be able to go in, put it in, and we have enough
Well, in the
transmission
places that
lines.
we're allowing it, that the industrial spots that are currently the permitted access locations,
have that
they'll have
power.
that.
They all have
So,
that.
you know, and then it becomes a special permit conversation, and that's a different,
Yeah.
that's a different
And that can
thing.
be denied.
That can be denied.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, but I think that they're gonna look for the easiest. The easiest
Yeah,
and the-
but as
the
time,
easiest.
as land gets tighter and tighter and tighter, or if somebody decides to build a really large, there's no limit on this, any of these proposed facilities. They could build one that's 300 megawatts, I assume, right? They're not defining a range. There's a minimum and a transition between small and what they consider large, but how large can it be?
So the definition of that threshold
Yeah.
for solar, it's 25 megawatts, and for BESS, it's 100
But that-
megawatts.
That's a limit, a minimal.
That's the limit for local review.
Limit to-
Anything that exceeds that then gets.
Okay, goes to that next level up. So they could do a 300, we'll say. And it would be worth maybe doing it at that point if they had 80 acres that they could cover with solar panels and battery facilities. Just like a power station like in Southbridge on 169, or, you know, if it's big enough, they have the money to do that. I doubt that's a situation here.
They also have the power lines pretty close to the place in Southbridge, though. They could just tie right into, so that they weren't.
Right, and there's big lines there.
We have a lot of, we have power lines going through town here too, so there's the accessibility to hook into them in a variety of places in town, so I am not so much concerned and worried about that aspect of it as the actual placement of the facility and having it in an appropriate placement. And I think, as Aidan was saying, that there are 3 by right areas and 2 by special.
Why don't you go over that again? And by right, you mean with site plan review?
Correct.
So what are the ones that are just, with site plan review?
So if we go to page 3, under primary use energy facilities, section D, if we're looking at lines, bullets 2, 3, and 4, that's essentially where they're prohibited, where they're allowed, and then where they're allowed by grant of special permit.
What do you mean bullets 2, 3, and 4? What are we looking at there?
If you're looking at primary use solar energy facilities,
All right.
section D, for bullets 2, 3, and 4 there. 2 is, that's where they're prohibited. Right now, that's written as 6 of the 9 zoning districts. And we're reducing that down to 4 to be slightly more accommodating. And by being accommodating, we're hoping that we are retaining that local control and transitioning those solar applications to the commercial and commercial 2 district by special permit. So it's currently prohibited in 6 districts. We have it recommended as just 4. The 3 districts it's allowed by right are unchanging. And then the final bullet point there, the 2 districts that it'll be allowed by grant of special permit. That's a new addition for just the commercial and commercial 2 district.
Thank you. So, I guess there's been some discussion that we need to have this approved at a special town meeting in October, is that correct?
The hope for the next meeting, August 24th, would be that the planning board would agree to be the petitioner and have this, sent to select board for a public hearing and have it on a town meeting.
So on August 24th, we'll have we'll go beyond the working copy. We'll have the official copy
Yeah.
then. And then, once there, we'll give our blessings or whatever. It will go to the selectmen,
Yes.
and then from there, it'll come back to us for putting it on the special town meeting.
Well, yeah, in other words, we come up, with the bylaw generally that we can support. We've had our meeting, we've had a discussion, and we request the Board of Selectmen to take that article and sponsor it to go forward to a town meeting. And it comes back to us to then schedule a public hearing.
Right.
And then with a certain period of time, we have to get the whole thing set up and then prepared for the town meeting. Now, the date for the town meeting hasn't been set, but do we have any ideas, like when, from the 24th on, when the Board of Selectmen would have to approve it, so we have time to do the public hearing and so forth? Has that been worked out yet?
We haven't worked out all of those dates. We did look at that very briefly. I've been given a very specific checklist, which has been, and Janae's very well-versed in how that needs to proceed step by step if you do wish to send this to public hearing and town meeting. But the guidance I was given by Jean is the clock is running out very quickly, and most likely in our best interest to have this complete on the 24th. As a contingency, this could possibly go to September, or we may need to schedule a special September meeting if, that's cutting it too
Well,
close.
I do think that, the date that she had put forward of the 24th was sort of our goal to try to have the final draft and the review that we would say, yes, we're happy with this and move it forward. So,
That's something I can plan out as well. So I plan on providing a staff memo for the 24th, and I can kind of plan this out date by date.
and what I'm wondering is, whether or not, that's only 2 weeks from now. And so, I guess, one of my concerns is that, I think with some of the questions we've had and the fact that, we're looking at this in sort of a, a draft form, some of these things, will significantly, add to, the scope of it as far as some of the comments that are here. I would think that really, we need to, have, I think, that draft to us at least, a week before the 24th to begin to really look at this and make sure that if we have any comments, we can get back to you. That might be helpful. Huh? Yeah, even to have another meeting, that would only be next week. I don't know if you'd have.
That's okay.
I won't be around for next week, though, because we did talk about, remember, we talked about that last time, yeah. All right, so, when do you think the soonest time is, Aidan, that you could have like this in a format that we would be ready to just say, okay, this is the wording, the way we want to do it with the recommendations, both from you and the staff that you've come forward with? How soon do you think, you're talking about having it on the 24th, but if we only see it on the 24th and have to vote that night, it might be kind of a problem.
I think at this point in time, the soonest would be for it to be distributed with the regular agenda
On that Thursday before?
on the Thursday
All
before.
right, as long as it's complete and we have everything there, at least it'll give us some time to prepare, but I think we definitely need to have it for that. The Thursday before, so that would, the Thursday before the 24th, that would be what is it, the 20th?
We have established meetings, well, I have meetings with DPW director, multiple with Ron Barron, and those are kind of all set up to have this to
Okay.
you for that weekend.
All right, so in other words, your goal will definitely be to have the final version for our review and consideration and vote to us on the 20th.
Correct, yep.
So so you've got meetings already scheduled with Ron Barron and with Heather and with Lauren?
Sorry.
You already have the meeting scheduled with Ron Barron and
Yes,
Heather?
yes, those are all scheduled for throughout this week and one going into the week after.
Okay, great. All right, great. Okay, so we'll see this on the 20th, and we'll try to handle it on the 24th. Great. Huh? Oh, you can give us your comments in the Yeah, you can always zoom in, that'd be great. Good. All right. Okay, next we have the town planner update, I believe.
Okay. So I'll just go by the report provided here. A&Rs, there were none tonight. Obviously, we've already reviewed the window technologies, and then in terms of new updates, Tractor Supply was mentioned at the last meeting in regards to their outside storage encroaching into the parking lot. The development since then is a notice of violations. 2 violations were issued, one for site plan approval, which pertains to storage of outside materials, and then another violation for failure to complete required repairs to some significant broken asphalt in multiple places, which is kind of a hazard for tripping. So,
Yeah, so it's my understanding that based on their current site plan approval, all their storage is supposed to take place within that gated area, with the exception of trailers that can be stored along the side. I mean, is that your understanding, or?
I would have to, actually, the definition that's stated in the notice of violations in regards to the site plan approval is, yes, they're outside the limits of what should be stored there, but also their decision dated September 8th, 2010, for that condition says, display of merchandise other than the trailer and equipment display delineated on the plan shall occur only within the fenced display area. At no time shall the use of storage trailers be permitted.
Right, right. They don't have storage trailers. But I think at one time they did store some of these pellets outside.
They've been using them as a pseudo-advertising until past week. There's this big pile of them. It says the price of the pellets and that kind of thing like that. And I think they had like 8 skids of pellets or something like this year at a sort of an angle to the street, 20-degree angle to the street. Maybe perhaps that's what triggered it. But they've done it in the past.
And this time I saw that there's photos online that they were stacked like 3 or 4 tall, and they were all leaning in a
were
precarious
they?
way, and very dangerously, and somebody had reported them, and they went down to square them away. And that was outside the gated area. And the trailers were being parked out there. They were putting, I think last year, they were putting large trailers out there. They were really going way out into the parking lot. You know, they could do that because of the conditions in the beginning, but these were very large. But the pellets weren't supposed to be out there at all.
Yeah.
So,
They have moved them because I went by today and I noticed that there was a change.
good, good.
So we'll be relying on the building inspector for any further updates on that.
Okay.
The next thing on the report was I just included what was included on the last report because I felt that these changes in the budget were pretty significant, especially the last one listed there on streamlining zoning variances. That's going to affect the ZBA pretty significantly. So just it's good to continue to read, and even myself, I'll be familiarizing myself with it over and over again. BESS and solar bylaw, we've obviously discussed. And one of the last items there is the Doughty Road Conceptual Master Plan. A meeting was held last month at the end of July, and I'll say as a newcomer to Sturbridge, I felt that that was very well attended, and it's great to see for the size of Sturbridge, the quality and quantity of civic engagement you have. So that is a great project that has been handed to me. Very excited to work with it, and I'm very happy to see the amount of people who are engaged in that right now. So we'll provide updates on that project as they come. And the final thing I have listed is we still have a few openings on the Historical Commission and Design Review Committee. I know some of those are potentially being filled. They are working with Robin and the Select Board. And then the final thing is our regularly scheduled upcoming meetings on the 14th and 28th. And I don't know if anyone has any issues with that or vacations they need to share.
September 14th to 28th, as far as I know.
I know it's always possible when getting into the fall season of things
Yeah.
that get that right. But see when the schedules come out.
All right, very good. So the next item is old and new business. Wally, any old and new business?
No, I have
Sue?
No, I don't.
none for me.
Dave?
Just a quick question. The state's been talking about making single-family dwelling units multifamily by right. Have you heard anything about that?
I've heard general discussions that has been, I believe, included in the economic development bill. All of Gene's accounts and emails have just been transferred to me today, so I need to sign up for all those local resources, get on the Mass Planners listserv, and read up on those, but that is an update I might be able to provide at the next meeting.
All right, thank you.
Very good. If there's nothing else, then, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Very good, all right.